I used to feel hopeful for the future. I remember being in school and being about 15 or 16 years old and going to school. Life was very simple back then. There was no social media. There was no external platforms where people projected onto. Life was easy. Life had joy. This would probably be something that someone in the 80s and the early 90s and the late 90s would know about. These days, everything is harder. I see we are living in an inverted world. It's upside down. When you start to wake up, you start to notice this. You start to see something has been going on within the human consciousness, within the human race. It's been trickling down from the government. It's been trickling down from media. And it's been going on and on and on. And it is something that is so prevalent that it feels suffocating. There is a futilism now when you go out into the streets. Futilism means hopeless. A feeling of why bother trying. And you can see a lot of people have just given up. A lot of people are giving up. It's not even enough, like all of their energy that they would have had for their hopes and dreams of their future to make life better for themselves and for their families. They don't have the energy to even have a dream anymore because they're just trapped on a wheel of survival. And in a wage slave world, time, energy, and money are all measured. So they're so busy surviving and working themselves to the bone just to put food on the table, just to have the lights on, that having the luxury of owning a home or having the luxury of being able to make things better is just but a warm, sunny dream. And that dream now is slipping further and further away. The title of this video is Living in an Inverted World. Inversion is what's happening now. Perversion is what is taking over, and it has been for quite a while. There was a very significant shift back in around 2013 that I felt. It was a moment where I was at my mum's house and I was helping her put clothes on the line. It was a very specific moment, and I remember standing in her backyard and the wind blowing in my face, putting sheets up on this metal clothesline of sorts, and just feeling this wave of something is happening in the world that is now basically corrupting and infecting people to a point that it's on target. I did do a video the other day about living in survival mode and the effects that has on your body, the tension that creates on your soul. And as you get older, the stakes get higher because we don't have the time to just go back and start again. I'm coming into my 40s this year in November, and I now see that the prospects of finding a partner is actually very, very, very limited. And that's not just for gay people that are switched on. That's for straight people now as well. We see that there is such a decline in marriages. The divorce rates of relationships are over 70% now in most Western countries. And so this whole idea of having a family and having a system where all of the lessons that I've learned go into another human being, that is all off the table. And it is off for the table for me for other reasons, but I won't go into that in this particular video. But what I'm sharing with you is we are at a point now where people just can't have families. People just can't afford it, and people don't date anymore. Humans have become so overstimulated from social media and from pornography and crazy ideological ideas that have basically infected and corrupted the soul. Not just the mind now, the soul. And my soul cries. It cries because we're seeing the end times fast approaching. The end is nay. It is not sustainable anymore. A lot of things now in this world are not sustainable. And I think it would have probably come to this anyway because of the way that humans behave, the way humans treat each other. A lot of parents aren't actually able to be hands-on with their kids anymore. They have to work double jobs. So they're not around to shape the kid as a person, to teach them right from wrong, to teach them the essentials. They're not there to protect them. And sending them to school, a school that really doesn't teach them anything, it doesn't teach them critical thinking, it kind of indoctrinates them into some sick socialism bullshit. And unless you've got the money for private schooling or some level of homeschooling, well then even if you did that, you'd be kind of depriving them because they would need social interaction from going to school. So it's like every aspect of the human civilization, from education to the workforce, just everything in general is becoming so inverted. Critical thinking in people just isn't there. And I call it the fluoride stare. It's when you walk past someone and there's just no one there anymore. They're just not home. We're seeing the homeless situation just everywhere. It's just so out of hand. People, you go to the park and you'll see people that are sleeping on, in tents or in the bushes. We're seeing mass immigration on a level in certain countries that is just absolutely so disproportionate to housing availability. The cost of living is so disproportionate to wages that people are starting to kind of almost like cannibalize themselves. And that's the modern tech world now, is that we reduce ourselves to objects, to sell ourselves. And that's how people interact with each other now. That's how people interact with each other now. And it's really so depressing. I don't know how to not talk about this because it's so obvious and it's so prevalent, and it scares me that these types of things just aren't talked about. We have a restriction on freedoms of speech. So even if you bring up how bad things are, it's like you're told to shut up. If you bring up something that is biologically true, you're told to shut up. We have such an inversion and such a corruption and a contamination of just a consensus on reality that it's just, I don't know how it's gonna, I don't see a way out of this. The only way I see out of this is a complete global reset. And so it's just, this is where society is now geared up to this point where the destruction of the nuclear family, just tearing families apart, is all by design. Society doesn't, I would say higher forces in governments just don't want in a modern society, they just don't want a healthy, stable family that's together. People have just inverted themselves on such a level that spiritual hygiene is just stripped away. And the risk of going into a relationship with people these days is almost borderline impossible, because everyone's just knows that it's just a rigged system. It's like a rigged game. Women don't date men. Men don't want women anymore. We've got men that now claim to be women and put on women's dresses. A lot of it is gynophilia. It is not being trans. We've got perversion on levels that is just off the charts. And inversion, in terms of this way of looking at it, is humans are regressing back to a very primal state where the mind and the heart, where real relationships are formed, relationships just aren't formed there anymore. So people just kind of use each other and abandon each other at their earliest convenience. They remove the humanity from themselves and from each other, and everyone's kind of chasing this high to fuck someone and then go on to the next. This was always prevalent with the gay scene and with gay men in particular, as knowing that myself. A lot of them are in their 50s and 60s now, and they're still fucking single, and they're still logged into all of these hookup apps. They've got not a drop of love in their life. They have no family. They've built nothing for themselves. They've got nothing to show for their life other than just pleasure seeking and playing fucking stupid characters. You know, it's getting so sick. We've got people that actually identify as pups, as dogs. You can't make this up. And as I'm getting older, it's just becoming harder and harder. And this isn't a complaint, because I'm a very, very hardworking person. I'm very switched on. This isn't coming from a place of not being able to find a partner because I'm so unattractive. That's absolutely not the point. That's not me. This is coming from someone who's really looking at what's going on and is saying, I don't see how we're going to turn this around. Debt controls people. The banks control people. The systems that are in place are really, really putting in their agendas. And it's keeping people weak. It's confusing people about who they are so that they're easy to control. It's fragmenting them from their own family units. And this is something that a lot of people are just not willing to take on as going into a marriage, when they know that it most likely will just end in divorce. Because in this generation and the generations that are coming now, it's kind of like social media has played a huge role in this. It's really kind of like everyone's focused on this next shiny syndrome, next shiny object syndrome. Something nice, something new, something fancy comes along, and we all want to trade up. We all suddenly think that what we have isn't good enough because we're taught that. We're taught to think that. Everyone's after the next thing, getting more stuff, more material stuff. Everybody's perception of each other online is this, that they're living this perfect life. You only see the highlights on their Instagram reels, on social media. You don't see the ups and downs. Your expectations are so disproportionate from reality that people don't have a consensus on fucking reality anymore. And so things like when it comes to sex and intimacy, everyone's expecting this thing that's to be so much higher than what it really is when it comes to what intimacy really is. Because I've all been watching fucking porn. Everyone's cheating on their partners and husbands. People are like trying to think that they can have the sexual freedom of being single while being in a relationship at one time. It doesn't make sense. It's not even possible. And everyone's rationalizing things under the guise of freedom, but it's just freedom for freedom's sake. Not everything that tastes good, that feels good, is good for you. There's no discipline. We objectify the opposite sex. We objectify each other. Everyone is hyper stimulated from being on their phones. It's completely rewired and screwed up our brains. The bottom line is we're getting further and further away from the natural world. We're moving more into an inverted world where humans are playing around with genetics. Babies are being created through IVF treatments where the baby should never have been created. We're weakening the genetic pool. We're creating more mental health problems for each other, more health problems than ever before to feed daddy pharma. Cancer is $1 trillion business. There'll never be a cure for it. And companies and governments that are funded by companies are benefiting from this. Everyone's just seeking quick, immediate gratification and dopamine, and that's become the modern age world, and I don't see a way out of it. Values and ethics of just being a decent human and just treating other people with just decency in a relationship or even in a friendship is just not there. The respect between mankind has just fallen. And now we're seeing very, very evil and pernicious religion systems are coming in because we know that it is a numbers game. A lot of the time, I wish I could just walk away from this life. A lot of the time, I've had enough. I'm tired. I'm so numb. I feel so repulsed by the world and by humans and people and how they use each other and how greedy and materialistic society has become, that it's just like I'm just over it. Everything's inverted. It's all an inversion, a perversion. And you want to have this kind of positive outlook on, live your dreams and go after what you want and you can make it happen and this type of thing. But at this point, it's become so disproportionately rigged out there that no matter what you do, it's rigged. And this creates a sense of futilism that we're seeing particularly within young men, as a lot of young men don't have father figures. Men and women are not equal. They are not the same. They bring different things to the table. They're both beautiful, but they're not the same. I think feminism started out as a good thing until it became absolutely so toxic and so repulsive. And of course, the other extreme of that would be hyper, masculinity, which is all about me and the ego and using people. That's terrible too. I just don't see a way out of this, and something is building. I don't know what's happening out there, but something is building. It is there. It's getting worse. It's like a heavy cloud, and it's just getting heavier and heavier and darker and darker. And you try and be positive and you try and really show up for yourself and show up for other people. But it's just disappointment after disappointment. And this is just trying to hold yourself together and conduct yourself in a world where people don't even really say hello. They don't really check in with each other. People just don't check in with each other. We're all starving for connection, but we're also fragmented from each other. So I just don't know. And I make these videos because they just hit me so hard. They come from a place within me that I just want to cry. Perhaps this is what humans deserve. It's what we deserve. We just do the same thing to each other on a loop. Just destroy ourselves. This time it's different now. It's not like Rome, because the technology and things of that nature, it's far more advanced. And I don't think a human was ever designed to log into a phone and be exposed to all of the issues of the world at one time, in real time. The psychology of the hardwiring in the brain is so different. And when you meet younger people, they've got this angst to them, a hopelessness to them, where basic skill sets are just simply just not there anymore. And I think, well, if that's our future, then we're fucked. So I'm just going to leave it here. An inverted world is pleasure seeking, it's hedonism, it's rejection of responsibility, it's abandonment of truth. We live in a world where truth is silenced, and insane and dangerous thinking and ideologies that aren't even rooted in reality are now taking front stage. And then we think that maybe, whether it is political or not, that another system will come in and help, but it just turns out to be another trap. But in any case, we're more than likely going to see a collapse of the Western world. And in Canada and in the UK and now in Australia, it's starting to really, really take root. It's starting to really happen. So when people say to me stuff like, I don't want to talk about politics, well, I don't want to talk to you. Because everything in your life is dictated and controlled by politics. How you live your life, what you're allowed to say, the tax amount that you pay, what you can and can't do. All of this is limited. Your resources are limited and controlled. Every aspect of your life is connected to the government. So doing the whole, I don't want to deal with that type of thing, that's not going to work. This isn't going to go away. Just wake up. Just wake up. I don't know what else to say. If you're out there and you're listening, I'm trying to send a signal out there into the world, and I hope that people can actually comprehend what I'm saying. Because to me, this is so straightforward. It's as plain as the sky. You can see it. Humanity is heading straight towards a tree, and it's going to take you with it. One way or another, things are going to come to a head. If you would like to support what I do, walking this path isn't easy. I am a mystic. I am an astrologer. I am an artist. But more importantly than putting all these fucking labels on what I do is that I'm a man and I care. And that's why I do this. That's why I go out and put my neck out and talk like this publicly. Because it is truth. And I believe that truth is the highest form of love. And if no one told you today that they loved you, I did. Please share my channel with anyone who would benefit from this. Please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe bell, or you know what to do. If you want to support me, it means a lot, because it does place value in what I do. Share this with people. Leave a comment below. Maybe someone needed to hear what I had to say today. Stay. Just stay.